The avoidant will never directly ask you to reach out. Their entire defensive structure prevents straightforward communication about need or desire for connection. But underneath the maintained distance and performed indifference is desperate hope that you'll break the silence, that you'll be the one to initiate contact, that you'll give them the connection they can't ask for directly. The avoidant sends indirect signals through specific behaviors that function as covert invitations for you to reach out. These behaviors are the avoidant's way of saying, "I want you to contact me," without having to say it, of expressing need without admitting need, of pursuing connection while maintaining the appearance of distance. Understanding these signals reveals the gap between the avoidant's presented indifference and their actual desire for reconnection. They're performing elaborate dance where they're simultaneously pushing you away through silence and pulling you toward them through indirect behaviors, creating conditions where you might reach out while maintaining plausible deniability about wanting you to. The avoidant is begging for contact in the only language they know how to use. Indirect communication that protects them from the vulnerability of openly wanting while still creating possibility that what they want might happen. These behaviors are cries for connection disguised as casual actions, and recognizing them gives you power to decide whether to respond to the hidden invitation or let the silence continue. The strategic social media visibility. The avoidant who's been quiet and distant suddenly becomes highly visible on social media, posting frequently after period of silence. They're sharing updates about their life, posting photos, engaging with content in ways that ensure you'll see their activity. This visibility is strategic rather than spontaneous. The avoidant is creating breadcrumb trail designed to catch your attention and potentially prompt you to reach out. They're not contacting you directly, but they're making sure you know they exist and that their life is continuing in ways they want you to witness. This strategic visibility serves multiple functions simultaneously. It allows the avoidant to communicate information to you without direct contact. They can show you they're doing well, or struggling, or thinking about things related to your shared history, all without having to send you a message. The posts are indirect communication designed for audience of one, even when visible to many. The avoidant is hoping you're watching, hoping the visibility will trigger curiosity or concern or nostalgia that makes you break the silence. The visibility pattern also includes specific types of content designed to elicit response from you. The avoidant might post about activities you used to do together, locations you visited, interests you shared. They might post cryptic emotional content that seems like it could be about the relationship. They might share things they know you'd find interesting or meaningful. Each post is potential hook, invitation for you to comment, to like, to send message responding to the content. The avoidant is creating opportunities for you to initiate contact while maintaining their position of apparent indifference. The strategic social media activity reveals the avoidant's desire for reconnection that they can't express directly. If they truly wanted distance, they'd maintain low profile or block you entirely. Instead, they're ensuring visibility, creating presence in your awareness, reminding you they exist and providing multiple potential entry points for conversation. The avoidant is begging for you to reach out through their visibility, hoping you'll take the hint and make the first move so they don't have to risk the vulnerability of reaching out themselves. The mutual friend information phishing. The avoidant starts asking mutual friends about you, seeking information about your life, your emotional state, whether you're dating anyone. The questions are posed casually, framed as mild curiosity rather than intense interest. But the pattern of information seeking reveals the avoidant's preoccupation with you and their desire to maintain connection through third-party intelligence gathering. They're using mutual friends as bridges to you, as sources of information, and potentially as conduits for communication. This information phishing serves the avoidant's need to know about you without having to ask you directly. They can stay informed about your well-being, your activities, your feelings without the vulnerability of direct contact. the mutual friends become information network the avoidant relies on to maintain sense of connection with you. They're not fully disconnected because they're receiving regular updates, staying current on your life through indirect channels. The phishing also functions as indirect communication to you. The avoidant knows that mutual friends will likely mention to you that the avoidant was asking about you. This creates awareness that the avoidant is thinking about you, interested in you, tracking your life. The information seeking becomes signal that the avoidant cares, that they haven't moved on, that they're maintaining connection even through distance. The avoidant is hoping this signal reaches you and prompts you to reach out, using mutual friends as messengers carrying subtext that the avoidant wants you to know they're interested. The pattern of asking about you reveals the avoidant's desire for reconnection that they're too defended to pursue directly. If they didn't want connection, they wouldn't care about updates on your life. The information seeking proves ongoing investment and attachment. The avoidant is begging for you to reach out through their questions to others, hoping you'll hear they've been asking and interpret it correctly as invitation for contact they can't extend themselves. The proximity engineering behavior. The avoidant starts appearing in places where you might be, creating opportunities for accidental encounters. They show up at locations you frequent, attend events they know you'll attend, position themselves in your physical orbit without directly approaching. This proximity engineering is deliberate strategy to create conditions where contact might happen naturally, where you might initiate interaction, where reconnection could occur without the avoidant having to make obvious first move. This behavior manifests as the avoidant becoming visible in your regular spaces after period of absence. They're at the coffee shop you go to, at the gym during hours you're usually there, at social gatherings with mutual friends. The frequency of these appearances exceeds what coincidence would explain. The avoidant is intentionally creating proximity, making themselves available for interaction while maintaining plausible deniability about their intentions. The proximity engineering also creates opportunities for you to approach them. By being in shared spaces, the avoidant is inviting you to initiate conversation, to acknowledge their presence, to break the silence that exists between you. They're putting themselves in position where natural interaction could occur, where social convention might require greeting or acknowledgement, where casual conversation could naturally escalate to more meaningful exchange. The avoidant is creating conditions favorable to reconnection while ensuring they're not the one actively pursuing it. The pattern of engineered proximity reveals the avoidant's desire for contact that they can't pursue directly. They want to see you, talk to you, reconnect with you, but they can't make straightforward approach because it would expose their need and interest. Instead, they create situations where contact might happen organically, where you might be the one to initiate, where reconnection could occur without requiring the avoidant to be vulnerable. The proximity is begging for you to reach out, to notice them, to make the first move that the avoidant desperately wants but can't make themselves. The breadcrumb message pattern. The avoidant sends minimal messages that don't require response but create opening for conversation. They might like an old photo on your social media, send a meme with no accompanying text, forward an article they think you'd find interesting. These breadcrumb communications are designed to re-establish contact without the vulnerability of actual reaching out. Each breadcrumb is low-stakes attempt to create dialogue, to see if you'll respond, to test whether the door to communication is still open. This breadcrumb pattern serves the avoidant's need to initiate contact while maintaining emotional safety. If you don't respond to a meme or a like, they can tell themselves it wasn't real reaching out, that they weren't actually trying to reconnect. But if you do respond, they've successfully re-established contact without having to be direct about wanting it. The breadcrumbs are emotionally hedged bets, low-risk attempts at connection that protect the avoidant's ego while still creating possibility of reconnection. The breadcrumbs also increase in frequency if initial attempts get any response. The avoidant is testing your receptivity, seeing if you're open to communication, gradually building toward more substantial contact. Each breadcrumb is an incremental step toward real conversation, but the avoidant needs you to show interest before they'll risk more vulnerable communication. They're building bridge one small plank at a time, waiting for you to step onto the bridge before they continue construction. The pattern of breadcrumb messages reveals the avoidant's desire for reconnection that they're too defended to pursue openly. They want conversation with you, connection with you, but they can't send straightforward, "I miss you," or "I want to talk" message. Instead, they send minimal content that creates opening while maintaining deniability. The breadcrumbs are begging for you to respond, to engage, to show interest that would give the avoidant permission to pursue the connection they want but can't directly ask for. The emotional vulnerability display. The avoidant posts vulnerable content on social media or shares personal struggles with mutual friends, creating impression of emotional openness they normally avoid. They might post about feeling lonely, going through difficult time, struggling with mental health, questioning their choices. This vulnerability display is uncharacteristic for the avoidant who usually maintains facade of strength and independence. The shift toward visible vulnerability is signal, invitation for you to reach out with support or concern. This vulnerability display serves the avoidant's need to communicate distress without directly asking for help. They're putting their struggle on display, making it visible, creating awareness that they're not doing well. The display is indirect request for support, for connection, for someone to care. The avoidant is hoping you'll see the vulnerability and respond to it, that you'll be moved to reach out, that your caring nature will compel you to check on them. The vulnerability also functions as apology or acknowledgement that things aren't perfect for them post-separation. The avoidant who performed indifference about the relationship ending is now showing that they're struggling, that the separation has impact, that they're not as unaffected as they pretended. This admission through vulnerability is an indirect way of communicating that the relationship mattered, that losing you matters, that they're experiencing consequences they didn't anticipate or prepare for. The pattern of vulnerability display reveals the avoidant's desperate desire for you to reach out. They're lowering their defenses in visible way, creating opening for you to approach with care and support. The avoidant is begging for you to see their struggle and respond to it, hoping that your compassion will override any hurt or anger you might feel, that you'll be the one to bridge the distance they created but now regret. The vulnerability is cry for help directed specifically at you, disguised as general sharing but designed to elicit response from the one person they can't directly ask. The reference to shared history. The avoidant makes references to shared experiences, inside jokes, or memories from the relationship in contexts where you might hear about them. They mention something funny that happened between you to a mutual friend. They reference place you visited together in social media post. They make comments about activities you used to do that suggest nostalgia and remembering. These references are signals to you that they're thinking about the relationship, remembering the good times, maintaining connection to shared history. This reference pattern serves multiple functions for the avoidant. It communicates to you that the relationship remains significant in their memory, that they haven't erased or forgotten what you shared. The references are a way of saying, "I remember us," without having to say it directly to you. They're keeping the relationship alive through memory while maintaining physical and emotional distance in present. The shared history references also create invitation for you to reach out and reminisce, to engage in conversation about what you experienced together, to reconnect through shared memory. The avoidant is creating topic for conversation, providing entry point for dialogue about the past that could potentially lead to dialogue about the present or future. They're using shared history as bridge, as common ground that still exists despite the current distance. The pattern of references reveals the avoidant's desire for reconnection through nostalgia. They're communicating that the relationship was meaningful, that they value what you shared, that the history between you remains important to them. The avoidant is begging for you to engage with the memories, to acknowledge the shared history, to use that foundation as basis for renewed connection. The references are indirect way of saying, what we had mattered and I want to talk about it with you. The changed behavior demonstration. The avoidant makes visible changes to behavior or lifestyle that address issues from the relationship, then ensures these changes are visible to you. They might start therapy and mention it where you'll hear. They might work on communication skills, emotional availability, or other areas that were problems. They're demonstrating growth and change, showing they're addressing the issues that contributed to the relationship's difficulties. This demonstration is indirect communication that they're different now, that reconnection might work better because they've evolved. This behavior change demonstration serves the avoidant's need to show, rather than tell, that they're working on themselves. They can't directly say, I've changed, give me another chance, because that's too vulnerable and demanding. Instead, they make the changes visible and hope you'll notice, hope you'll recognize the effort, hope you'll interpret the changes as indication that they're serious about growth and potentially about reconnecting. The demonstration also functions as apology without having to explicitly apologize. By fixing issues that were problems in the relationship, the avoidant is acknowledging those issues existed and accepting responsibility for addressing them. The changed behavior is an indirect way of saying, I know I messed up and I'm working on it. The avoidant is hoping you'll see the changes as evidence of genuine reflection and growth rather than as superficial performance. The pattern of demonstrated change reveals the avoidant's desire for you to notice their growth and reach out. They're hoping the visible self-improvement will catch your attention, make you curious about what prompted the changes, potentially make you think that reconnection might be worth considering. The avoidant is begging for you to acknowledge their efforts, to validate their growth, to use the changes as reason to re-establish contact. The demonstration is indirect invitation to try again, to give the relationship another chance now that they've addressed some of what went wrong. The reaction-seeking content. The avoidant posts content specifically designed to get reaction from you, to make you feel something, to potentially prompt you to reach out. They might post about dating someone new to trigger jealousy. They might share achievements to make you proud or impressed. They might post sad or struggling content to elicit concern. Each post is strategically crafted to create emotional response in you that might translate to reaching out. This reaction-seeking serves the avoidant's need to know they still affect you, that you still care, that they still matter to you. Your potential reaction is proof that the connection isn't completely dead, that you're still paying attention, that they occupy space in your emotional world. The avoidant is fishing for evidence of ongoing impact while maintaining distance. The content also tests your boundaries and interest. If you respond to jealousy-inducing content, you're revealing you still care. If you react to achievement posts, you're showing continued investment in their life. If you reach out after vulnerable posts, you're demonstrating compassion survives the separation. Each type of content is different test of your feelings and willingness to engage. The avoidant is gathering information about where you stand while creating opportunities for you to make contact. The pattern of reaction-seeking reveals the avoidant's desperate desire for you to break the silence. They're creating content specifically designed to move you to action, to make staying silent difficult, to give you reasons to reach out. The avoidant is begging for you to respond, to show you care, to make the first move toward reconnection. They can't reach out directly, but they can create conditions that make it easier for you to reach out, and that's exactly what they're trying to do. The timing and anniversary awareness. The avoidant becomes more active or visible around dates significant to your relationship. They post on the anniversary of when you met, around holidays you spent together, on your birthday. This timing isn't coincidental. The avoidant is aware of these dates and their significance, and the increased activity is signal that they're remembering that the dates still matter, that they're thinking about you specifically on days that marked your connection. This anniversary awareness serves to communicate ongoing attachment and memory. The avoidant is showing they haven't forgotten what these dates meant, that the relationship timeline remains significant to them. They're marking occasions in ways visible to you, creating awareness that they're thinking about the shared history these dates represent. The timing is message that you remain important even through distance. The awareness also creates expectations and opportunities for you to reach out. On significant dates, reaching out feels more natural and justified. The avoidant is hoping you'll use these occasions as reason to make contact, to acknowledge the shared significance, to break the silence in ways that feel appropriate to the timing. They're creating windows where reconnection feels easier and less vulnerable because the date itself provides context and justification. The pattern of anniversary awareness reveals the avoidant's ongoing connection to the relationship and desire for contact. They're tracking significant dates, remembering what they meant, marking them in visible ways. The avoidant is begging for you to acknowledge the occasions, to reach out on days that represent your connection, to use the timing as bridge back to communication. The anniversary posts and activity are indirect way of saying, I remember our history, and I'm hoping you do too. The help or advice seeking. The avoidant creates situations where they need help or advice in areas where you have expertise or where you previously supported them. They might post asking for recommendations about something you're knowledgeable about. They might mention to mutual friends they're struggling with something you could help with. They're creating opportunities for you to offer assistance, to reach out with support, to engage on topic where you have natural role to play. This help-seeking serves the avoidant's need to create legitimate reason for contact. If they need help with something you're expert in, reaching out to you makes practical sense. You're the logical person to ask. The request for help gives both of you cover for re-establishing communication without having to address emotional aspects directly. It's transactional beginning that could potentially lead to more personal connection. The seeking also allows the avoidant to position you as needed and valuable. By asking for your help or expertise, they're implicitly acknowledging your worth, your unique capabilities, your importance. The request is indirect compliment and validation, recognition that you have something they need or want. The avoidant is hoping this positioning will feel good to you, will make you more likely to respond positively. The pattern of help-seeking reveals the avoidant's desire for contact disguised as practical need. They're creating reasons for you to reach out, problems you could solve, questions you could answer. The avoidant is begging for you to offer assistance, to engage on the practical level that could open door to personal reconnection. The help-seeking is excuse for contact that protects both parties from vulnerability of admitting they want connection for its own sake. The changed communication pattern. The avoidant who blocked you or maintained strict no contact suddenly unblocks you or becomes available for contact without initiating it. They don't send message, but they remove the barriers that prevented you from reaching out. They might unblock on social media, update privacy settings so you can see their posts, or start appearing in shared digital spaces. This changed pattern is signal that contact is now possible, that the door has been opened, that they're receptive to hearing from you even if they won't make first move. This pattern change serves the avoidant's need to create possibility of reconnection without actively pursuing it. By unblocking or becoming available, they're removing obstacles and creating opening. They're making it possible for you to reach out if you want to, while maintaining their position of not actively seeking contact. The changed pattern is passive invitation, creation of conditions favorable to reconnection without taking responsibility for initiating it. The change also communicates shift in the avoidance state. The blocking or strict distance represented peak defensiveness, maximum protection against vulnerability. The softening of those boundaries suggests decreased defensiveness, reduced need for extreme protection, potential openness to reconnection. The avoidant is signaling through actions that something has changed internally, that they're in a different place than they were when they created the distance. The pattern of changed communication access reveals the avoidant's desire for you to reach out. They've opened the door and are waiting to see if you'll walk through it. The avoidant is begging for you to make contact, to test the newly opened channel, to be the one who breaks the silence they initiated but now want ended. The changed pattern is an indirect way of saying, "I'm ready to talk if you are," without having to say it directly and risk rejection. The emotional state mirroring. The avoidant seems to mirror your emotional state or life circumstances in their posts and behavior. If you're posting about being sad, they post sad content. If you share achievements, they share achievements. If you're visibly struggling, they display struggle. This mirroring creates sense of continued connection, of parallel experience, of still being in sync despite physical distance. The pattern suggests the avoidant is closely tracking your emotional state and unconsciously or consciously reflecting it. This mirroring serves multiple functions. It creates subconscious sense of connection and similarity, maintaining feeling that you're still on same wavelength. It also communicates to you that the avoidant is paying attention, that they're aware of what you're experiencing, that they care enough to track your emotional journey. The mirroring is an indirect way of staying connected, of showing investment without direct contact. The mirrored emotional states also create natural entry points for connection. If you're both posting about similar struggles or experiences, reaching out to commiserate or offer support feels natural. The avoidant is creating common ground, shared experience in the present that could serve as basis for conversation. They're showing you're still experiencing life in parallel ways, maintaining implicit connection despite explicit distance. The pattern of emotional mirroring reveals the avoidant's close attention to you and desire for continued connection. They're tracking your state, reflecting your experience, maintaining synchronization. The avoidant is begging for you to notice the parallel experiences, to reach out and acknowledge the similarity, to use shared emotional territory as bridge back to communication. The mirroring is an indirect way of saying, "I'm still with you even though I'm not with you, and I hope you notice." The regret and mistake acknowledgement. The avoidant makes statements about regret, about recognizing mistakes, about things they wish they'd done differently. In contexts where you'll likely hear about them, they might tell mutual friends they regret how things ended. They might post vague content about learning from mistakes or wishing they could do things over. These acknowledgments are indirect communication to you that they recognize their role in the relationship's problems, that they've reflected and grown, that they have regrets about how things went. This acknowledgement pattern serves as indirect apology and admission of fault. The avoidant can't apologize directly to you because that requires vulnerability and direct contact they're not ready for. But they can acknowledge mistakes publicly or semi-publicly, knowing the acknowledgement will likely reach you. They're taking responsibility in a visible way that communicates to you without requiring them to face you directly. The regret statements also function as implicit invitation for you to reconsider the ending. If the avoidant regrets what happened and recognizes their mistakes, it suggests they might behave differently in renewed connection. The acknowledgement is an indirect way of saying, "I know I messed up and I'd do better if given another chance." The avoidant is hoping the regret will make you more open to reaching out, more willing to consider reconnection. The pattern of regret acknowledgement reveals the avoidant's desire for you to know they've reflected and grown. They want you to hear that they recognize what went wrong, that they've taken responsibility, that they're different now than they were. The avoidant is begging for you to acknowledge their growth, to credit their self-awareness, to use their admitted regret as reason to reach out and potentially try again. The acknowledgements are indirect plea for another chance, communicated through admissions designed to reach you without requiring direct, vulnerable contact. The lifestyle change visibility. The avoidant makes dramatic visible changes to their lifestyle that address criticisms or concerns you had during the relationship. If you wanted them to be more social, they suddenly become highly social and make sure it's visible. If you wanted them to pursue certain goals, they start pursuing those goals publicly. If you expressed concern about their habits or choices, they make changes that directly address those concerns. These lifestyle shifts aren't just personal growth, but strategic demonstrations designed to show you they've listened, they've changed. They're addressing the very things that created problems between you. This visibility of change serves to communicate indirectly that your perspective mattered and continues to matter. The avoidant is showing they took your concerns seriously, that your opinion influenced their choices, that they value what you thought enough to make real changes. They're demonstrating respect for your judgment and needs through action rather than words. The changes are an indirect way of saying, "You were right and I'm doing something about it." The lifestyle changes also function as proof that reconnection might work differently now. If the problems you identified have been addressed, the reasoning goes, then the relationship dynamics that failed before might succeed now. The avoidant is building case for giving things another try without having to explicitly make that case. They're letting the changes speak for themselves, hoping you'll notice and draw the conclusion they want you to draw. That they're different enough now that reconnection is worth considering. The pattern of visible lifestyle change reveals the avoidant's awareness of what went wrong and their hope that fixing it will bring you back. They're working on themselves partly for personal growth, but also with audience of one in mind. The avoidant is begging for you to notice the changes, to recognize the effort, to see them as evidence of genuine transformation. They want you to reach out and acknowledge what you see, to validate their growth, to consider whether the person making these changes is someone you could try again with. The competitive achievement display. The avoidant suddenly becomes highly focused on achievements and makes sure those achievements are visible to you. They're getting promotions, completing projects, reaching goals, and documenting all of it publicly. This achievement display serves multiple purposes beyond simple life progress. The avoidant is showing you what you're missing, demonstrating their value, proving they're thriving without you, while simultaneously hoping these displays will make you want to reconnect with the impressive person they're showing themselves to be. This competitive display emerges from the avoidant's need to be seen as successful and desirable. They want you to see them achieving and feel regret about not being part of their success. They want you to be impressed, to feel proud of them, to recognize their worth. The achievements become currency in the unspoken competition for who's doing better post-separation, but they're also invitation for you to return and be part of the successful life they're building. The achievement focus also allows the avoidant to reach out with legitimate updates that aren't emotional in nature. They can share professional success or personal milestones with you under guise of normal life update, testing whether you'll respond, whether you still care about their accomplishments, whether there's still connection between you. The achievements become safe topics for potential contact, areas where reaching out feels justified by the news being shared rather than by emotional need. The pattern of competitive achievement display reveals the avoidant's desire for your attention and admiration. They want you to see them succeeding, to be impressed, to potentially feel you made mistake in letting them go. The avoidant is begging for you to acknowledge their achievements, to reach out with congratulations, to show you're still invested in their life and proud of their progress. The displays are an indirect way of staying in your awareness while giving you multiple reasons to break the silence and reconnect.